Hello students, hope you all are doing well. And here is my first video for 9th standard. So let's start. After Blenheim by Robert Southey. Now let's start with a brief description about the poet. The poet and his notable works. Robert Southey. His genre was English Romantic poet. He belongs to in English Romantic era, which were in 19th century, the first part of the 19th century. He was born on 12th August 1774 at Bristol in England and died in 21st March 1843 at Keswick, England. St. Coleridge, also known as Samuel Taylor Coleridge, was his friend and brother-in-law. It is important to note here to mentioning the name of St. Coleridge because St. Coleridge was also one of the notable poets of Romantic era. By occupation, Robert Southey was a poet, historian, biographer, translator, reviewer, journalist, and essayist. The literary movement in which he participated was Romanticism. Now, you should know about first what Romanticism means. So, Romanticism was the movement which was followed by major Romantic poets. And what was there? What are the features of Romanticism? That these poets used to write about nature, they used to write about past, history, and supernatural elements. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, written by St. Coleridge, also a poem based on supernatural elements. But in this particular poem, after Blenheim, we are going to talk about history, talking about past. So we can say that it is also a romantic poem. Robert Southey was a poet laureate from 1813 to 1843. His notable works are long heroic poems, Talba the Destroyer, Medoc, and Curse of Kehama. Other short essays which he had written, including The Battle of Blenheim, The Inchcape Rock, and The Scholar. The translations which he had contributed to English literature was The Chronicle of CID. Now, because of this work, he gained immense popularity, immense fame in England. He is also titled as the Complete Man of Letters by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Now, let's start with a brief description about the poem. After Blenheim, which was written in 1796, is an anti-war poem. At first, you should know what is the meaning of anti-war poem. Now, anti-war poem describes about the horrors of war. Now, this is set at the site of Battle of Blenheim. The Battle of Blenheim started from 1704 with the questions of two small children about a skull which they found while playing. Means in this particular poem there is a story and the story revolves around a grandfather and grandchildren. Those grandchildren were playing on the field and they came to the grandfather with a skull. The grandfather, an old man whose name is Old Casper, tells them of burnt homes, civilian casualties, and rotting corpses while repeatedly calling it a famous victory. Now, here the grandfather is, a kind of ordinary person who has accepted the suffering of a war. He talks about burning houses, he talks about the suffering, injury, faced by the common people and rotting corpses, the heap of corpses rotting under the sun. He talks about all these expressions and later on he calls it a famous victory. Now, this is ironical that he talks about so many things which people had gone through, and after that, he calls the battle a famous victory. The poet depicts the common man's ignorance of the motives of the war. The poet wants to emphasize through the repetition of the lines that wars are senseless, futile, and evil, and that in war there are no real winners. Now, before moving towards the stanza wise description, it is important for you to know about the background of the poem. So, in this particular section, I'm going to discuss about the Battle of Blenheim. Blenheim is the English name for the German village of Blindium, situated on the left bank of Danube River in southern Germany. In November 1700, the grandson of Louis XIV of France acceded the throne of Spain as Philip V. Austria and other European countries saw this development as an unfair plan of the French king to increase his power and influence. Consequently, war broke out in 1701 between Austria and France. Here you note the war was between Austria and France. Now, later on, many other countries joined hands with Austria and many other countries joined hands with France too. Furthermore, England and Netherlands allied themselves with Austria. The German principalities of Bavaria and Cologne and Italian principalities of Mantua and Savoy allied themselves with France. As the war progressed, Portugal and many German dominions, including Prussia and Hanover, entered the war on the side of Austria. What happened eventually is given in the last para. In addition, Savoy renounced its allegiance to the French and joined anti-French coalition. In 1704, the coalition defeated French and Bavarian forces at Blenheim in one of the most important battles of the war. Among the conqueror's heroes were England's Duke of Marlborough and Savoy's Prince Eugene. So towards the end of the discussion, what we have learned that the war was between Austria and France, and eventually who won the battle? So Austria won the battle with the help of Duke of Marlborough. Now, in short, I want to tell you about the background now. Listen to it carefully. So, Battle of Blenheim, the most important victory of John Churchill, who was the first Duke of Marlborough. So, here England's Duke of Marlborough is referred to John Churchill and Eugene of Savoy in the War of Spanish Succession. The first major defeat that the French army suffered in over 50 years, it saved Vienna from a threatening Franco-Bavarian army, preserved the alliance of England, Austria and United Provinces against France, and knocked Bavaria out of the war. Now, in the next section, children, we are going to discuss the poem stanza by stanza. The poem and analysis. First stanza. The poem starts with this. It was a summer evening. Old Caspar's work was done, and he before his cottage door was sitting in the sun. And by him sported on the green his little grandchild Wilhelmine. See the pronunciation, Wilhelmine. Now, the words which are difficult for you to understand are given in bold letters, so the meanings you can see just below. Here, sported means played. So it was a summer evening, and as it happens, in summertime the days are long. So after doing his work, old Caspar sits in front of his cottage door, and there only the small grandchildren were playing. Now it is a summer evening. The grandfather, old Caspar, sits before the cottage door. Here a new character is introduced, that is Wilhelmine, his granddaughter, and she was playing on the field. Alliteration is used in the third and fourth line. As you can see, it is given in bold letter. Alliteration in third line, repetition of the sound H, and fourth line, repetition of the sound S. Now, moving towards the next stanza. Second stanza. She saw her brother Peterkin roll something large and round, which she beside the rivulet in playing there had found. He came to ask what he had found that was so large and smooth and round. Now, the meaning of rivulet is given a small stream. So, children were playing just near a small stream. Casper's grandchild, Peterkin, comes towards him by rolling something large, smooth, and round. Here, the universal nature of a child, that is being curious, is portrayed by the character of Peterkin and Wilhelmine. Now, this is the very nature of a child, that the child is always curious about things. Now, they got something while playing, they got something got something round in the field. So, out of curiosity, they came to their grandfather running for asking what it is. Now, what are the literary devices used here? So, there is rhyme scheme, and you should note here, all of you, that second stanza's rhyme scheme is different from all the stanzas rhyme scheme, and that is why particularly in this stanza I have given you the rhyme scheme. So the only stanza where the rhyme scheme differs is A, B, C, D, 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 while other stanzas rhyme schemes are A, B, C, B, D, D. Kindly note here. Now moving towards the next stanza, that is the third stanza. Old Caspar took it from the boy, who stood expectant by, and then the old man shook his head, and with a natural shy, "'Tis poor fellow's skull," said he, "who fell in the great victory." Now, expectant means the children were expecting or hoping to get a reply from the grandfather. The great victory here refers to the Battle of Blenheim, the battle in which England defeated the French. And shy here means to breathe deeply and heavily, mostly when you are in pain. Now, Caspar says that he finds many such skulls while plowing the fields in the Great Victory. Now, here Caspar admits this fact that not only one or two skulls are there beneath the earth, here many skulls are buried beneath the earth. So, whenever he goes for plowing the field, he generally gets so many skulls. Now, irony is there when Caspar calls it a great victory. Why it is ironical? Because Caspar knows the kind of suffering, the kind of situation the people had gone through during that time. Even being aware of the fact that thousands have been killed in the battle, he calls it a great victory. Now, this is ironical. Moving towards the next stanza, that is the fourth stanza. I find them in the garden, for there's many hereabout, and often when I go to plough, the plowshare turns them out. For many thousand men, said he, were slain in great victory. Here he admits that whenever he used to go for ploughing the field, he gets many such skulls in the field. Slain means to be killed, and plowshare, a broad blade of plow. Old Caspar takes the skull from Peterkin and tells that it is a skull of a poor man who died in the war. In this particular stanza, one of the themes, that is man's cruelty, is discussed. Caspar tells that thousands were killed in that so called victory in which England won. But, eventually, who wins? Nobody wins, because there is no winner in any war. Moving towards the next stanza, that is the fifth stanza. And children, you must note that in this video I am going to discuss till fifth stanza. Another video I'll be making in which I'll be discussing the other part of the poem. Now, fifth stanza. And now tell us what 'twas all about, young Peterkin, he cries, and little Wilhelmine looks up with wonder-waiting eyes. Now tell us all about the war and what they fought each other for. Now, first of all, you understand the meanings of some difficult words. "'Twas." "'Twas" means it was. In ancient time, okay, it is, instead of calling it was, people used to call "'twas." Right? So it is an old form, archaic form of English. Now, wonder waiting eyes. Now, Wilhelmine was looking at her grandfather with wonder waiting eyes. Means she was expecting to hear some exciting things. Now, so in this particular stanza, the poet talks about that Peterkin and Wilhelmine both questions their grandfather about the purpose of war. Now, another major theme, that is curiosity, is introduced in this stanza through the character of children. Alliteration you can find in the fourth and the last line. Fourth line, wonder waiting eyes. The sound W is repeated, and the last line, fought each other for. The sound F is repeated. So, children, in this video, we have discussed till fifth stanza. Wait for the next video. Till then, stay well, stay healthy. Bye.